This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Jay Kelly, the new film from Academy Award nominee Noah Baumbach. George Clooney stars as an actor confronting his past and present on a journey of self-discovery, alongside Adam Sandler as his devoted manager. Critics are calling it a declaration of love to the chaotic art of filmmaking, with the Wall Street Journal praising it as a transcendent comedy drama. Jay Kelly is now playing only on Netflix.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana makes car selling fast and easy from start to finish. Enter your license plate or VIN and get a real offer in seconds, down to the penny. If you accept, Carvana will come pick up your car from your driveway. Or you can drop it off at one of our car vending machines. Either way, you get paid instantly. It's fast, transparent, and 100% online. Car selling that saves your time. That's Carvana.
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
Adobe Acrobat Studio, so brand new. Show me all the things PDFs can do. Do your work with ease and speed. PDF Spaces is all you need. Do hours of research in an instant with key insights from an AI assistant. Pick a template with a click. Now your prezzo looks super slick. Close that deal? Yeah, you won. Do that, doing that, did that, done. Now you can do that with Acrobat. Now you can do that with the all-new Acrobat. It's time to do your best work with the all-new Adobe Acrobat Studio.
At IKEA, your dreams can come true. Well, maybe not the ones where you're being chased by a monster. We're talking about kitchen dreams. And there are IKEA products and solutions for all of them. Whether it's a whole new kitchen, a statement glassware set, or just new cutlery. If you got big dreams or small dreams in any size or budget, IKEA can help you bring them to life. Visit IKEA.us/dreamkitchen to learn more. Dream the possibilities.
Come meet me at the Musial with Alan and Daniel. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good morning and welcome into another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I'm your host, Daniel Shoptaw at C70. With me as always, Alan Medlock at a Medlock1, coming to you Saturday morning. What is today? 13th? I think it's the 13th. It's this time of year. Everything kind of gets together, and if it's not Christmas Day, then I have no idea what day it is. Alan, it is, I don't know. Has it gotten cold for you? Because I know it's supposed to get cold this weekend, and then it's supposed to get hot again. And I wish it would just be winter. But
Yes.
it doesn't seem like it's going to be that way.
Nah, we ran into a situation where we had beautiful weather this week. Like, we practiced outside every day. Kind of regretted it yesterday. It was sunny but cool. We went 65 on Thursday to about 55, maybe 50 with wind yesterday. And then we have a cold snap of single digits coming in overnight. So it's going to be cold here for a little bit. So it's probably heading your way in a day or so. But yeah, it's cold. And then I don't know what the full forecast is this week, but I'll be stuck in a gym regardless. So yeah, it doesn't matter. I just hope I can get home and it's not icy, one of those situations.
No,
But,
yeah. I mean, I know ours is, we're supposed to be really cold tonight and tomorrow. I mean, about really cold, 35 or so probably is the high. But then it warms up. And then right now, I haven't checked today, but last I looked, Christmas week has got some 70s in it. So that's just not right. And you probably don't want that if you're going to be stuck in a gym either. If it's going to be that warm, you won't be outside.
Yeah, exactly. That's like right now we you can get a lot of good practice in right now. You historically have better weather in December than you do in late January or February as you get closer to the season because it gets a little wet. So you try to take advantage of all the outside you can do right now, and it's been great. But But yeah, it's going to be a extremely busy week of indoor sports. So we're going to try to practice and fit in where we can. And I would love for the weather to be good, but if it's not, that means I can stay on the turf and just move from one room to the next and get stuff done.
Yeah, and then it's here we are, less than 2 weeks until Christmas. Have you got everything ready? Are you ready, prepared for the big day?
We're way ahead of schedule for us. Everything has gone online, for us basically because I won't get out until the 20th for us to get out in the world. We'll take a couple of shopping trips that we do normally just to get out in the world a little bit and maybe hit some of our favorite restaurants and do stuff like that. But we're way ahead of the game now. We thought that we were porch pirated this week for the first time ever, but turns out it was just a normal scam. So that's a whole other story. So yeah, we figured that one out last night.
We had that last year. I thought we had been, because it said it was delivered and it was not anywhere around. And then I think we even, that was an Amazon order. We told them it didn't get delivered, and then they refunded the money, and then it showed up like a day or two later anyway. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh yeah. That's that time of the year where it's not as efficient as they like it to be.
And they'll check it off before it's actually on your porch. So, but yeah, it is. I went out with my wife yesterday at lunch to go get a few things for my daughter, and we were, our town is about 30,000, and it was lunchtime on a Friday, and it felt like everybody and their dog was there. And no, there's a reason I sit at my desk and do 95% of my ordering, if I can at all help it. So, anyway, here we are. It's old men show right now. We're talking about the weather, talking about Christmas. But that's partly because the Cardinals didn't give us just a ton to talk about this week. It wasn't completely devoid of news, but Alan, you and I were talking a little bit before the show. Winter meetings are just not exactly what they used to be. There was still some activity there, but it wasn't the free for all that we've seen at some points.
It's you could tell that it is it's obligatory to some teams at this point, and it's more for the the viewers and the television shows than it is for the business, I think. Now, we don't get to see what goes on behind closed doors, so there may be major foundations that take place or stuff that happens behind there that is more substantial to the organizations than we see as far as what's broadcast. I know there's a big trade show and things like that. We go through that on some of the coaching stuff on our level. So I understand that there's a lot of business involved, and that will probably be some of the reasons that it hangs on. But I will tell you, as far as stuff getting done, it just hasn't been the same as it has in recent years. I was noting before the show that I don't know if I may be wrong on this completely, but I don't know if ESPN did a dedicated show from the winter meetings, and they normally do. And I know that I watched the MLB Network broadcast from there, and it wasn't on par with how it has been on recent years, and they weren't even they weren't even in Orlando at all on Wednesday. All of the shows that they did on Wednesday were all from the studio. So that used to be the getaway day for everybody. You had the Rule 5, and then everybody would leave, but the broadcast would usually stay there and catch whoever was on. So what tells me that brings me back to a note that Derek Gould had in his article last weekend, that the Cardinals weren't even getting there till Monday morning. So I was like, wow, for somebody that's going to be a mover and a shaker, you're getting there a day later than most other organizations, which tells me teams are showing up a day later, leaving a day earlier. And you just wonder of the importance of all of it going forward. I'm a huge fan of it. It's a big weekend for me because you're talking about baseball in December, but you can tell the importance isn't what it used to be.
Yeah, I was reading an article, and I can't remember exactly where. I don't think it was an Athletic. It might have been. But there was an article that was written about how there are some people that would just get rid of the winter meetings, that there is less need for them in the days of texting and video calls and things like that. And they said that, they pointed out next year's probably will not happen. The lockout, I guess the end of the CBA is December 2nd, and that would be before winter meetings, and last time there was lockout, they canceled them because there's really nothing to do. But it is, and like they pointed out, you're right. They're talking baseball in the middle of football and basketball season. There's not. I mean, it's still not going to be like a lead thing, but when activity gets going, it at least gives some buzz around the sport at a time where they don't usually get anything.
Yeah.
I also wonder, they talk about how people just get a chance to see each other. I wonder if sometimes it's not helpful because if texting and video calling, things of that nature, email, you've got to make that I'm going to contact that person, right? But in a situation like the winter meetings, you can be sitting in the lobby and 4 or 5 people walk by that you hadn't seen in a while, and you say hi, and then all of a sudden that triggers something, like you get a caulking, or you're like, hey, I need to check in with that guy or something of that nature. And maybe it just creates opportunities that not being face to face don't. But so I figure they'll keep doing it, but like you say, it's probably not going to be the big spectacle that it was in the early 90s or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, I can completely see that. It's it's such a fun week, mainly because you're getting into the holidays, back to the talking baseball, all those things. And you hate to see it go away in any sort, but and it's viewership for baseball, for especially an MLB owned network. So yeah, I would hate to see that, but it wouldn't surprise me just because things are so how do I say it? Technology's made communication so much easier than it used to be, and there is the stories of a couple of drinks and deals are made. So I don't know if that still exists either, but I throughout the whole week I did wonder what I'm torn on this.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a benefit to having a 100% frozen time or a deadline where you have to make deals?
I think from our point of view and for the excitement point of view, yeah, there is that. But I've also seen, and I agree with this. I mean, if you wanted to have a trading deadline in the winter, that would be one thing, I think. But some of their advocates on the player side are saying, look, they don't want to be forced into taking a deal. I mean, granted, if you're still out there in February or March, you might feel like you're forced to taking a deal. But if you had to decide on December 15th where you're going to go, then teams are probably just going to slow play it, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to give you their best offer, like ever, because they're going to know that you're going to have to take something, at this time. So I think there's probably it's probably a little less player friendly. It's definitely, friendly for, I mean, we saw it, in 21 when they had that little bit of the lockout was coming, and like all this flurry of activity, and there's all this stuff that got done before the lockout came. So we've seen how that can be exciting, and we know every year at the trade deadline, how that gets going, even if it's sometimes a little bit disappointing. But I don't know. I think for baseball, to some degree, it also helps because you're talking about these guys, and you're talking about them more if they don't sign than if they do, right? I mean, we're going to be talking about the Cardinals who, haven't traded anybody. And we could be talking about that all the way. I mean, some of these players may not move until February or something. That means that's just more time for, more articles, more comments, more time to be in the spotlight, even if it's just a little, sliver of it. And so I don't know. I think that there's a instant gratification type of thing of getting it all at one time and knowing that, your team's kind of set by December 15th. But I think baseball probably is maybe better served by keeping it like this.
Like it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I kind of thought the exact same scenarios whenever you could see that it's that it just seems like the importance of it. I mean, you could feel it, from the broadcast to the media reports. I mean, it was hard to I wouldn't say hard to find, but of the ones that I subscribe to all the time, podcasts I subscribe to all the time, you would get the daily updates on that. But there were some that didn't, and they would do just like the total recap. And there's one that I follow that still has yet to do a recap on it, and it was the national show. I mean, it was, and it's one of those you're just thinking, well, you just see that the importance in there. I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is or how things are going to play out on that, but it just didn't seem the same. I mean, it's still exciting, still entertaining, and it's still a daily watch for me. But there's not the intensity that they normally had.
I mean, and I don't remember, maybe I'm missing one, but I don't think there were any really notable trades.
I don't think I'm not certain there were any trades.
Yeah, I can't think of now. Free agent signs have their own kind of buzz, and obviously, like Pete Alonso going to the Orioles and some things like that were big. And of course, we saw, I think it was during the winter meetings that Ryan Helsley went out to Baltimore as well to have that Cardinal connection. And those are interesting and worth talking about. But I don't know. I feel like trades are what really get people excited about things, and maybe that's just because the Cardinals are in that spot where they are going to be making trades, and there just wasn't any of that. And you're right. Maybe there was some groundwork being laid. There's been talk about the Cardinals think they're going to have a busy week, but it feels like, it used to be that those, GM meetings in November were where the groundwork was getting laid. And now groundwork continues to be laid quite often. And I guess teams are more comfortable getting players into their system in January and February than they used to be. I don't know, but it feels to me like, I mean, who knows? Maybe the Cardinals trade 4 players this week, and we're scrambling around trying to do a show next weekend. But I don't know. A part of me just feels like it's going to be, it's getting later and later for teams to, and I don't know if that's just holding out, if that's because there's so much information out there now. It's not like you were saying 2 guys get to the bar and they make a deal. It's got to go through, all the analytic departments, all this stuff. And is this good? And let's ask for this. And I don't know if that's what it is or not, but it does feel like it takes deeper and deeper in the winter for teams to really look like what they're going to look like.
Sure. And, you do have, it's kind of a weird spending year, I guess, too, because you have 3 of the albatross of 3 teams that are looking to make moves. You have both New York teams now, and you have Boston, who are angling on some of these players. Well, and I mean, you can throw Toronto into that as well.
Yeah.
It's one of those to where, I mean, of course, the Tucker deal is not going to affect the Cardinals much unless there's a new bar connection of the fallback of one of those situations. And you'd already kind of heard that in a Mets type move. The Mets are interesting because you could tell that they're doing a cultural rebuild, but they have money to do it.
Yeah.
So that probably means a lot. I mean, of course, the Contreras link happened fairly quickly with Alonso out, and now you hear Contreras again on the Red Sox side of it. All that to say, I'm assuming that Bregman is going to could be a reason we haven't seen much movement on your Donovan situation, and definitely a Donovan situation, and possibly an Arenado situation. So the Cardinals may just be playing it really, really slow, which is something that we didn't expect after the last 20 years of that being the approach. But they could actually be in a pretty good situation because there's going to be times where these guys sign, people are going to be left out, and there could be haste to make moves after that. So not just always looking on the optimistic, bright side of that, but I did kind of wonder about that during the winter meetings. I'm like, there's nobody that signed that really, other than Alonso, maybe, that would indicate any movement on the Cardinals side where you think that a Bregman signing and all those things will.
The problem with the Cardinals, at least a little bit, is kind of what you're saying, but they have the second or third best option on the market.
Yes.
And it is, if Marte is going to get traded from the Diamondbacks, or, if, like you said, Bregman's out there, that affects it. None of their guys are the guys that have to go first. And so, they have to not only, then they have to wait on those guys to sign, and then, maybe they can clear the way. So yeah, I think there's circumstances beyond their control. I don't know if Chaim Bloom would have rather had that all out or if he's fine with the way it is. I mean, there's got to be some parts that you'd like to have made a moves more than the Sonny Gray move, and I guess that's the kicker, right? Kenny Gray was one of the better pitchers out there, so you didn't have to necessarily wait on anybody else to get that done.
Yes.
I don't know. I think it really feels like, I mean, I'm sure they're talking. I'm sure they've got, and it may be that as soon as Bregman signs and they have a trade like in 10 minutes after or something like that, because everything's set up with whatever teams.
Yeah.
But until those triggers happen, we're just kind of sitting there and just like the front office sitting there waiting.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it happens here, sitting on December 13th of the domino to fall, because I do kind of wonder if this week is not necessarily hectic for the Cardinals, but hectic for a free agent spending period, just because of you move into the holidays, and or is it a situation where that ease of technology and ease of communication kind of changes things, and we see stuff every day but Christmas. I don't know the importance of the break at this point, and I don't know. I mean, it's kind of funny, and the things that you pointed out at the winter warm up and how that may be directly affected was actually a really interesting note, in some pre-show conversation.
Yeah, I saw a quote from Chaim Bloom. It might have been in Derek Gould's right fielder this week. I'm not 100% sure, but it was to the point that he said at one time he had gotten a phone call on Christmas Day, and he's like, "I don't even celebrate Christmas because he's Jewish," and he said even that irritated me.
Yeah.
So I guess there are people that try to work through this break, especially probably agents and such, but. I don't know that you get a receptive audience if you do. So yeah,
Sure.
there's that time that everything's going to get shut down and really nothing. I mean, probably it's really just this week, right? Because by the time you hit Sunday, it really feels like 21st, 22nd. Offices are starting to close down, and you really probably don't see much activity until. You're looking at the 4th or 5th this year because of how late in the week the first is.
Yeah. Ultimately, I mean, the signings are big, but some of the signings are also predictable at this point. There hasn't been anything earth shattering. I mean, I felt like the Mets have telecast that Alonso was not in their long term plans, even for somebody that means so much to the organization. The 1 year deal with the opt out, giving him the opt out, to see him go to Baltimore. Baltimore's a bit pretty interesting right now because they see that this window is closing on some of their younger guys, and they're going to have to strike while it's hot. So that's kind of interesting to see them making some moves. But yeah, any of the moves so far, nothing has been earth shattering to me. Schwarber going back, Alonso to the Orioles. The Mariners are big, that they're going to have to bring people in. So there's a lot of moves to be made. That's why it's kind of head scratching to that it's been such a slow moving market.
Yeah, because it feels like, I don't know. It's just this era that we're in. And I say era, it's been a long time probably now, but that idea of everybody's got to have every bit of information, and then they've got to try to, get the best deal they can, which is understandable.
Sure.
But like you said, it's a long way from Whitey Herzog going in the 80-81 meetings and just, flipping his team, because he knew what he wanted and he just got it done. You don't see that kind of. I don't want to say Whitey was flying by the seat of his pants, but he didn't necessarily, have every little bit. He knew that guy could run and this guy could play defense, and that's what he needed, and so he went and got it.
Yeah.
And I think in the 90s that there was that off season with Jack McKeon and the Padres that Trader Jack and all that, and you just don't see much of that anymore. And honestly, the Cardinals have an opportunity to kind of be that way this year, but they have to. They're going to wait, and again, I'm not faulting them, but if you're going to sit around and wait on the best deal, it's going to take a while. Whereas there's an idea, okay, would it be better to just go ahead and make this move even though we're going to get 80-85% back? I mean, right now, I'm sure Chaim Bloom would say we have to get this right, because this rebuild has to be done right, and this is really our only chance to do it. So I'm not faulting them at all, but it unfortunately takes longer than we'd like.
Yeah, call me crazy. I expected something along those Herzog lines at the
Mhm.
meetings, to be honest with you, because I kind of thought with Bloom being in the organization for 2+ years that I thought that there would be some willing and dealing. But the more you
Yeah.
see it, and because I also expected Bregman to sign, which I think will be a big piece in what the Cardinals do. Honestly,
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that that'll be the one that kind of moves the needle a little bit. But I did think the Cardinals would be relevant players, in Orlando by moving several people out.
yeah,
And that's mainly because I felt like, well, they have such an advantage with Bloom had being here longer, not just taking the job. That I thought things could get a little bit interesting. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. Well, I'll say this: when you realize that, hey, there's probably not a lot that's going to happen anyway, it didn't surprise me. I was going in kind of hopeful, thinking that what would happen, but I don't think any organization's moving in that direction now. I mean, when you hear the Preller talk of moving some stuff out, and then on the backside of that, seeing that they're in some financial trouble, that one
mhm,
makes a little bit of sense. And I thought that they would be some movers and shakers too. But back to the Cardinals, I kind of thought there would be several deals involved, just because they're there for the taking, and the contract that you're getting.
yeah, yeah. I mean, but and then again, we went into the week with this idea that Willson Contreras might be moved, but by the end of it, especially with Alonso moving, it feels like that's more and more
Yeah,
a situation that's going to happen. And in fact, I don't know that I might say that that's the next domino to go,
sure.
which I wouldn't have said this time last week, but I just, he's got no trade if he's willing to waive it. There are opportunities there. People know he's an established guy. He doesn't have some of the drawbacks that, well, pretty much everybody on the Cardinals have to trade except for Brendan and Donovan have. Um, and I could see, that you could see that Mets connection saying, okay, we'll do that. That'll work. Um, I don't know. If you were to guess who would be the next person out.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, I kind of feel like I think that they went back and and reignited those talks with him because there's a lot of interest. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
Which tells
Yep.
me that could happen pretty quickly. And with some of the DH first baseman types moving around, you could kind of see it. I mean, a week ago I would have said it was Donovan, and
Mhm.
that's how quickly things are changing. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those that there's some intrigue to me of, I know what next year has in store.
Yeah.
They've told us, like, hey, we're gonna play youth, and there's a part of me that thinks that they'll play a lot better with the youth next year anyway. But on a selfish side, I would like to see a Weather Holt win. I would like it to be Donovan Burleson infield next year,
Mhm.
just not for competitive reasons, but for entertainment reasons. And let's the new in a completely selfish world, I'd like to see them play well above their head, and then re-sign Donovan. I know
Yeah.
all these things are probably, some not as realistic, some highly unrealistic. But with that being said, I mean, it's one of those deals with the expiring contracts that they feel like aren't going to be players in 2 years. I would say move them and see what you can get. And
Right.
I'm not going to be upset about that at all. And I really like Contreras, but it seems like his market's hot right now. So we'll just see how it plays out. And I have a feeling when you have the Mets and or Red Sox involved, those things happen fairly quickly. And of course, Bloom knows that market in Boston well, and he's already gone there once this year.
Well, then we think about the fact that, they went to the Mets with Helsley in the
Yeah,
offseason. You start to want, and again, there's just a small samples so far. You do worry a little bit about going back to the same wells quite regularly. I know, and everybody has that, right? John Mozeliak went to Cleveland who knows how many times, especially in a short period of time. you have teams that you're familiar with, you have teams that you're comfortable with, and I get that. But I think, and obviously they're teams that have talent as well. So I mean, you get what you get. And if that's the best place, that's the best place. But I don't know. I think you start. I think there's a concern when you see that that's just going to be a crutch, right? That okay, we need to make a trade, so let's call Boston.
Yeah.
And hopefully that's not the case, and we'll see. I doubt it will be. I did find it interesting, and I saw this tweet. I think it was from H.M. Witten 331 this week, who pointed out that you can tell the Cardinals, some of the Cardinals' plans by who is not on the winter warm up autograph ticket list. I assume, and some will be added when they know for sure that they're going to be around. But if you go over to that list, you can see there is no Donovan, there is no Newbar, there is no Arnaudo or Contreras, there's no Gorman. And then, and like I said, some of the, and like Alan, you and I were talking about this beforehand, some of those you can explain away. Nolan, I don't know that he ever comes. Contreras doesn't feel like that's something that he would probably do, although he has probably in the past, I think, probably after the first one, especially. But those younger players, those players that are still under team control, typically that's the kind of thing they're there at. They're encouraged to be there. I don't know if it's actually in their contract to be there, but they're at least encouraged to be there because of the charity and all that kind of stuff. And for them not to be on that list, I mean, like I said, they can be added later, but it really tells you that the Cardinals are at least it's not just smoke. We know that there's at least some real significant possibilities these guys are going to move, and before winter warm up.
Yeah, the when we went over the list, I was like, oh, that's extremely interesting and not surprising, but it's like we talked about before that's the winter warm up is another thing seemed like it's lost its intensity a little bit over the past few years, but hey, don't book any travel yet until the last minute because you may be doing it for another organization was funny to me.
Yeah, it's just like, I wonder if it's less that and more they didn't want to refund the money to whoever, all these people that are going to buy tickets, because I'm sure those guys go for. And when we're looking at the price list, they're going to be the $40-$50 range probably for most of those guys, and just easier not to have to try to refund money in case they're gone. So, yeah, and there were things that did happen this week. Cardinals gained a player in the Rule 5 draft. They grabbed Matthew Pushard from the Marlins, a relief arm that has some potential, it looks like. Lost a few guys from their none of that. Cade Winquist may have been the biggest name that left. I know there was some. We talked a little bit. I don't know if we talked about it. There was some talk at the time when Blaze Jordan was left off the protected list, but nobody took him, so it's fine. He's still in the organization. What are you? We've seen some good luck with the. I want to say luck, but they do their work. We've seen some good results from the Rule 5. Most notably lately, Ryan Fernandez, his Rule 5 year was very, very good. What do you think about Pushard? I mean, are you expecting him to make it through the year?
In their situation, it's just I would have, man, I don't know. Those are such a gamble, but to me, I feel like they're going to try to bring on every arm that they can, and see what works. Were you somewhat surprised that they took him or took a player, or did you expect it, knowing that they're just going to stockpile as much pitching as possible?
I don't know that I expected it. It didn't really surprise me. We have seen them, and like I said, it's not like a brand new thing. That year, 2 years ago, we were giving Mo all the credit because he built that bullpen through such varied means, including the Rule 5. So I wouldn't say I was surprised. It is helpful, probably. They don't plan to contend, so they don't necessarily have to do a lot of the Memphis shuttle type of stuff to keep people fresh and all that, because that's just one arm that you can't do anything with. But So I would expect him to make it through the year, I would think, because of things like that. Now it could be that he gets so bad that they have to send him back, but nothing his numbers indicate that he's just going to be that terrible.
Yeah. So yeah, I wondered about that after it was taken. I was thinking, well, did I expect them to take it? Which deep down I probably did. And then it's just like, well, at this point, you just trust in the organization because it's even hard to research guys like, especially pitching on my side, where
Yeah.
I'm like, I would like to know some of the outline numbers that they find to bring these guys in because the technology right now and the scouting applications are just blow me away about what they can find.
Hmm.
One of the reasons I say that is I went to a coaching clinic a couple weeks ago, and it was at Oral Roberts here in town, and the technology they were using and the printouts that they gave me just to show stuff was incredible, incredibly over my head as well. Yeah, it was nuts. I was like, wow.
And that's at the college level,
At
right?
the
I
college
mean,
level, it was insane, and that's
yeah.
without the mega millions the big leagues do or these organizations have to do it. It was, yeah, it's nuts.
You got to figure there are high school teams out there. I mean, granted, in very rich areas, they're very big sponsors that have better analytical data than some of the major league teams did when we were growing up.
Oh yeah, yeah, oh
I
yeah,
mean,
without a doubt. I mean, I'll last night I was at I was at a high school basketball game, and it's
mhm.
where I grew up, which is a small town in Oklahoma. They host us every year when they to have a boys team. Long story, no one cares, but I will say this: the technology they have at the gym at that small school, they were giving me up to the minute scouting reports off the cameras they have in the building with the
Huh,
technology that they have now, and that's on a small school, high school level, to
crazy.
where now you think that just like Arkansas, the high school stadiums for
Hmm.
football here mimic the college stadiums. Like where I
Yeah.
went to school in Tahlequah at NSU, it's that stadium's nowhere near as nice as two of the ones that we visited this year on a 5A high school level. And
Oh.
the ability you get to do with the cameras and the scouting systems just blows me away. I mean, and it's insane. I mean, last night the stuff that I learned that you could do through your phone, it was incredible. So I think you're spot on. I think that even 10 years ago, I think Major League
Mhm.
Baseball was, I wouldn't say behind, but was moving these things around at such a level that it's just it's unbelievable. It's almost like a foreign language. It's so far advanced.
Yeah, once they were able to get the cameras there and really be able to track every single thing, then it's just a matter of, okay, you've got the data. Now let's do something with it. But to be able to get to that point is incredible, and just to think about, you can tell how far did somebody go, and the catch probabilities and all that kind of stuff that you can now figure out pretty easily. I mean, not so easily, but you've got the numbers. It just right there. So it's pretty incredible. And for that to then start trickling down is pretty amazing. Like you say, I don't know that. I mean, I'm sure there are Arkansas schools that have some of that. I don't know like ours does or not, but up there in Northwest Arkansas and Walmart country, I'm sure
Yeah,
all of them
yeah.
all of them have all of that kind of stuff. And it's I mean it's to some degree it's overkill, right? I mean, what do you need that just because you can do it doesn't mean you really should at the high school level. But on the other side of that is there are major league players at that level, right? I mean, at some point in time, they will be, and being able to give them the information to develop themselves, or maybe you can develop a player that becomes big in a sport that he wouldn't have been because he's got the information to make the changes and adjustments, and that can change somebody's life. So, um, on that side, it makes sense. But when you think about a high school stadium that's millions of dollars and has all this cutting edge technology, it's like, where are we going? What are we doing here?
Well, you're right. I mean, it's one of those things like, hey, we don't have the budget for that kind of stuff. Now that it's coming because we're going to put in a bond project, all kinds of stuff that goes into another thing that people definitely don't care about. But I will say it's not prevalent in baseball right now because I don't think people have figured out an all-weather camera to deal with the Oklahoma weather in the spring. Does that make sense? I think that's part of the issue you have of why it's not as popular in baseball, because you have so many of the stadiums that just aren't equipped to do it. Now, on the other side of that, if I were able to get that kind of technology and fully be able to use it and read it, I do feel like I could simplify things to our players that right now that they're so new to the game that seems like they're drinking from the fire hydrant.
Right.
That I feel like I could turn around and be like, hey, this is, you're here and we need to get to this point, and this is the quickest way to do it. I do feel like that would be advantageous, and I think coaches are using it like that. But I agree with you. It's the technology has definitely surpassed the talent, so to speak, to where now it is a money game. And no offense, like our rep is fantastic, but I can't ask for a single thing without getting upsold to a next one in a district that doesn't have any money, and that drives a wedge between the haves and the have-nots, and that worries you about the suburban versus urban kind of setting, which this is going off the rails, and I can talk about this for 5 days.
Yeah, and that's fine with me because I mean it is a topic that's probably worth exploring. But yeah, I mean, I just think about, when I was in high school and I did the stats for the team, we went to a stadium in Little Rock that Brooks Robinson had played in, and it probably had not been upgraded much since Brooks Robinson had played there. I mean, it was pretty much still an old stadium that, I mean, it wasn't bad shape, but it wasn't anything, two shakes or anything. And, I'm sure that would have been a difficult place to try to put cameras in and all that kind of stuff. And
sure.
Now in a lot of places, especially because, baseball sometimes gets the short end of financing, compared to like football and things like that. Although I think that's somewhat changing. If you're not going to get upgrades to your baseball stadium as easily as you are your football stadium.
So without a doubt, definitely in Oklahoma.
Yeah. I think, I mean, it feels to me, we are really getting off topic, but who cares? Nobody's listening anyway. It feels to me that, especially, things have shifted in baseball's favor not on the national level, but on like regional type of thing, because, like here in Arkansas, the Razorbacks have been excellent in college baseball for 20 plus years, right? I mean, that has gone from when I was up there kind of an afterthought to one of the major drivers. I mean, it's right up there with, it's not right up there with football just because football's a different thing, right? But it only does, 16 games, or not 16 games, there's only a handful of games, but it's probably right up there with basketball, or real close. I mean, people that I never would have imagined people talking about, taking a weekend trip to Fayetteville to watch, a series or something like that. And it's been a big deal. And I think that's trickled down to, like locally, we've got, they've developed a travel team that they didn't have before, and they've put in a lot of money at the, the turf fields and things of that nature. So I feel like maybe on a local and maybe even state level, at least in some places, baseball has got a foothold and is getting its, even if it's not to the level of football and basketball, it's still getting what it needs. But that's not everywhere, I know.
Yeah. That's the profit sharing in those things is substantial. But I mean, of course, the one trick is that everybody pays for football no matter how bad it is. That's they still come to watch, mainly because it's the show of the evening and the Friday night lights aspect of it. Yeah, basketball around here is huge too. I mean, our basketball gates are good for, as far as, I mean, we have a rebuilding group right now, but I mean, people come out to watch because that's, it's the gym, there's the energy to it. But you're right. The disparity in a lot of those things is very, very, very clear to see.
Yeah. Cardinals also, and we'll try to get this back a little bit back on track. Cardinals also had the draft lottery this week. It's you can tell that the official site is very optimistic looking. I don't know what the best word to say is. Propaganda was closer. But their headline for that is that the Cardinals get lucky 13. Even though that was probably the worst option that they could have gotten. The Cardinals had a chance to, had a 2 point something percent chance of getting the top pick. Really expected to be in that top 6 of the lottery. To fall to 13th, it does sound like it's a deeper class, but that really does put a hurt on some of the things that the Cardinals probably wanted to do this year.
Yeah, I did wonder about that too, because I was thinking, man, they have a chance to get something substantial here, and then you get past the first 8, 10 maybe, then it turns into the game of the signability and what it will cost and how you make your draft pool money work. Because I thought, you start getting into that top 5 category, then things really start looking up for you. So there was a little bit of a gut punch to be 13. I thought, well, you're middle of the pack now. You never know how this is going to go in a draft that I don't think is going to be ultimately too deep.
I mean, and then, the Cardinals are kind of used to that area, right? They used to be drafting in the 18-19 range, which is 13 is better than that, but not just a huge jump up. Yeah, I mean, it helps that they got that, compensated that competitive balance pick adds to the draft pool as well. But I think it's going to be very interesting. I mean, it's also that idea of, the Cardinals have been very fortunate over the last few years to have players that dropped in the, in the rankings and down to them. Now, granted, that was mostly notable with Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman, who have not necessarily developed the way that you thought they would be on draft day. And that's maybe a lot of different reasons for that. But, JJ Weatherholt dropped a little bit as well. He was
Yeah.
at least thinking about possibly being a 1-1. So when he dropped to 7th, then that was not bad. The Cardinals do reset their lottery clock too, which is the fact that they're eligible for lottery picks over the next 2 years, which could be a big deal, right? I mean, the Cardinals not expected to be real great this year. And so if they had finished in the top 6, they would not have been able to be eligible for that next year. Although I say that, I know that was the idea, and I think that's right. But I also know there's a little bit of a wrinkle with teams that are revenue receivers, I think, and the Cardinals are supposed to be a revenue receiver this year instead of a revenue payer, which is interesting as well. Anyway, put that aside, but to be able to get back into the lottery after what could be a rough year this year, especially if people that don't get traded at the deadline, that's a silver lining at least.
Yeah. You're right. I like that you said propaganda too, because in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, you get what you get. And I mean, let's just see where it lands and things move around. But, you do kind of wonder, are you going to get the quick shaker that you have of Weatherholt that's going to be a 2-year minor league guy and make his appearance? I mean, you don't know. I mean, you're going to have to trust the process. And ultimately, I mean, I kind of do with Flores.
Yeah, I think it's again, it's about who you pick, but it's also about what you do with them afterwards, right?
Yeah.
Some of the things, I guess maybe one of the bigger things from this week was the fact that Chaim Bloom kind of came out and said something to the effect of that, they didn't feel like they'd set up Ivan Herrera well to catch, and that's probably as bad of a thing that Bloom has said about the prior regime as they've heard, but when you hear that and then you're like, well, I mean, then how much of the troubles of Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman do you put on maybe they just weren't as good as we thought versus they didn't get the training that they needed?
Sure. I thought about that quite a bit after the comment. I was like, well, that leads me to believe that they have a lot of faith in Walker as well. And I just don't know if they're going to say that. Or not say, I don't know if they're going to say that there was, and I can't think of a better term, but maybe a mistreatment in the training. Yeah, I thought the exact same thing. I'm glad you brought that up because it had slipped my mind, but I was like, that was the most negative indication that we've seen from him, on any of the player development stuff, because you have that situation. You have a lot of guys that you kind of wonder, why do they come up here and struggle? And now I think that they may have found a reason why.
Well, and I mean, it kind of goes back to what Katie Wu wrote a couple of years ago now, about how they didn't have anybody in the minor leagues, right?
Yeah.
They didn't have the staff that they were supposed to have, and some of the staff they did had been there a bit was a bit outdated, and so yeah, I mean, it's not too surprising that maybe they didn't get the the modern training or the modern information, or weren't on the same page. I think that's what we heard a couple times was the major league front office wasn't talking to the minor league side and didn't really know what was going on. And so put all that together, and it's probably not a surprise that the Cardinals are where they're at because they weren't able to put these players in the position to succeed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, which is somewhat exciting. You're just like, well, okay, maybe they did find the secret sauce a little bit here, in that we could see a turnaround fairly quickly. Don't know about that, but it seems like it's back to what we've talked about for 2 months. At least there's a direction, and they've made it clear. You know what I mean? And that's refreshing.
Yeah, being able to see a problem and try to address it. Now we'll see if it works. We'll see if if they're doing it right. But from all indications, these are guys that are more in tune with how baseball is going now, and know what tools and things to use. So yeah, I think there's a lot of optimism on that. But when will it be reflected? I mean, you're right. We saw a player like Joshua Baez make a big step this past year. Was that just a natural step, or was that some of the new training and staffing making an impact? We'll talk with Kyle and all those later in January, and probably have a better idea of that. But it feels to me like it. I mean, is that, I don't know if that's just coincidence that we saw some people like that make those steps, and with the new training starting to filter down. So hopefully we see more of that. Hopefully we see guys that we don't necessarily think a lot of during the draft then become significant prospects. And again, not JJ Weatherholt type prospects or anything like that, but heck, a Brendan Donovan prospect. I mean, I continue to remember when Kyle was saying, this Brendan Donovan guy is going to be really good, and it turned out he is pretty good, and he's now the the reason you might get more good players because they're going to trade him. I just think if you get guys like that aren't necessarily superstars, but can come up and be, I mean, that's what the Cardinals did so well, right? They brought up the Matt Carpenters and the people like that, the Brendan Donovans, that weren't necessarily like top 100 prospects, but came up, knew how to play the game, and contributed to the team. And they got away from that, and hopefully they can get more of those.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And when we're going back to the Donovan deal about the development coming up, being a star, not necessarily what people expected, and Kyle was definitely way out in front of that. I remember because he would even talk about maybe he can play a little bit of shortstop in need, type situation. I remember those conversations, and it goes back to isn't that's part of the development of you develop, play, sign, or trade. And eventually their development process is probably going to work because he's right on the star level, and you're going to get some players back for him. As much as he's the type of player that I love and I would love to see stay, but I mean that's just kind of how it works. So yeah, I mean it's intriguing to see what happens now, and somewhat exciting to see what's going to happen now.
Yeah, and hopefully it's a busy week. Hopefully we've gotten if it is, Alan and I'll get back here and we'll do a show next week. If not, it might be New Year's before we get back to it, and then we get into our run of guests, and we will see less of Alan because he's going to be busy. Anything else that we've missed? Anything from this week you want to talk about? Anything in general that you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
Well, no, we touched on a lot and went a lot longer than I would thought, and what we potentially uh, it came across as a dead week that we weren't expecting,
Yeah.
But it's it'll be interesting to see what happens this week, all across baseball to see how much movement's going on. If not, it's going to be a really hectic January because before you
Yeah.
know it, I mean, they're going to spring, they're going to Florida.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, like you say, we've talked about this in the past, after, you shut down for Christmas and New Year's, and then it's like 2 weeks till winter warm up. And then, players show up in Florida right after the warm up
Yeah, oh
sometimes.
yeah,
And then, you're talking, you know, less than a month after warm up when, camps open. So yeah, it felt like it used to be teams like to get their teams set up before Christmas, if nothing else. I thought they used to like to, they like to do it. I always thought it was a good idea to do it like early December so that you could get those jerseys or whatever out of the new player and people could buy them for Christmas.
yeah.
Do a lot less of that nowadays. Plus, it takes forever to get a jersey out on the racks. It seems like. But yeah, I feel like this week. I mean, again, it depends on the player, But if I was a player, I think I would want to know what I know my destination if I was a free agent before Christmas. I'd like to get that taken care of, locked down. I think that's why we've seen, Sonny Gray, both sign and then get traded from the Cardinals around Thanksgiving. Is he's a guy who wanted to get things done, and get it settled, know where I'm at, spend the winter, you know, getting acclimated to the new organization. I would want to do that. And so if that's the case, that's this week. And if some of those sign, then maybe we see some stuff move for the Cardinals. That's the hope, at least.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I kind of feel the same way. I'm just, there's a lot of speculation of all the interest in all these players, and I'm just ready to see the rubber hit the road a little bit and start to see the makings of what we feel like the lineup's going to be. I think the Cardinals are going to sign a starter when it's all said and done, just to fulfill some innings, and those would be guys my best guess is going to be a midline guy who they eventually think that they're going to trade regardless, or somebody with that they can trade that's controllable. Those will be the things I'll be willing to watch here for the next few weeks.
Yeah. Wouldn't be too surprised if that starter doesn't get signed. That's a deal that happens later.
Sure.
Who-
I
who-
would not
who's
be.
left?
I almost expect them to trade for a controllable pitcher and sign a
Yeah.
guy with a name.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I mean, they're going to want to get as many arms in as possible because, even if you think that Quinn Matthews is going to help, he's probably not going to pitch a whole season at
Sure.
the major league level. And some of these other guys like Fitz and Liberatore, and who knows what's Palante is going to guy that's probably going to start in the rotation, but if he has a season like he did last year, I think they'll be willing to pull the trigger and move him and bring somebody else in. So you kind of need those arms because I don't know how many people are going to spend from opening day till the end of the season in that rotation.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that.
Yeah. All right. Well, like I said, if it's a busy week, Alan and I should be back next week. If not, we might try to wait till after Christmas and do a little bit of look back, but we'll probably get at least one more in 2025. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for subscribing. And until next time, for Alan, I'm Daniel. Good night.
Happy holidays and good night.
Is there any point where that...
Well, I think right now I can tell you that we're going to trade people. I just don't know if it's going to be like household names or more of guys that just aren't likely going to be here next year.